everybody, this is Nancy Paloma Collins, licensed marriage and family therapist with Paloma Therapy Group. On this week's episode of Mental Health 411, I bring you a conversation about transnational motherhood with Alejandra Alvarez, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She has 15 years experience. I can't wait to have this conversation. But just as a reminder that Mental Health 411, the podcast, is for information and entertainment purposes only. If you're seeking medical advice or mental health services, please reach out to a professional. Thank you so much for being here. And I am going to be bringing on Alejandra Alvarez. I believe that she's already here. Let's see.
Hi.
Hola, Alejandra. Hi, how are you?
Bien, I'm good. ¿Cómo estás tú? How are you?
Very well. I'm doing well. I'm so excited to finally have you on here and having this conversation that is very genuine to you and very intimate. And I just wanted to say that I really appreciate you bringing on this topic and having this conversation with us.
Oh my God, thank you. Definitely. Thank you for having me over and talk about something that is, as you said, very intimate to me, but something that I can see happening over and over in our community.
Yes, and specifically with so much going on at the moment, we have so many children who are being brought over, right, and are being cared for by other family members. So vice versa, we have parents that are coming in from other countries and leaving their children under the care of family members. And then we have children coming over for a better opportunity in life and also being cared for by maybe family members or relatives that are not their parents. So that's going to be the topic of today. And just before we get started, if you can let everybody know a little bit about who you are, Alejandra, please introduce yourself.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I am I'm a marriage and family. Oh my God, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I was born and raised in Mexico, and I came here at 16, and now I'm a carrier of two cultures.
Yes.
And as a clinician, I have been working with kids in the community, adults, of people of all ages in the healing world, because it's not only mental health, it's more of soul healing. So that's what I do.
And you have so many years experience. I believe you have 15 years experience in the mental health field. And also you're a mother of two beautiful young women. And I'm sure they're going to be so inspired. I mean, they already know the story, but just to be able to hear you talk about, your journey and what you've gone through is so inspiring to them and to so many young adults and children that can possibly hear this conversation about transnational motherhood. And can you please tell us a little bit about what that exactly means for people that are unaware of the term?
Transnational motherhood means that you are a mother and a child in different countries. So the mothers usually migrate to a different country for either finding a better life for their children, for their safety, which is what we're seeing these days, the separation of migrating to another country and the child that is left behind with family members.
And so you did some research, right? I'm sorry to cut you off, but you did some research and you did a thesis on this subject. And what was the name of your research, of your final thesis?
El Dolor de Hija, Pain of a Daughter, and the Healing Journey.
I'm going to put the title here so that people can read this, because it's very, it's just very compelling, just the title of it. Tell us a little bit about this thesis. Where do you want to start? We can start off just come right into it, or how do you want to get started with this conversation?
I want to start by saying that it brings emotion to me. I want to start with my body, right? And acknowledging that even though a lot of healing have happened, the body still holds on this emotion. So I want to start by acknowledging that. Number one, where to start? I did some research in regards to, let me go back and say that ever since my mother immigrated to the United States and I stayed in Mexico, there was a lot of questions that I had about myself. There was a lot of questions about a lot of the things that I was experiencing. And through this internal inquiry, I pushed me. It really pushed me to find answers. And that was one of the primary goals of entering into psychology, for me to find out what was going on with me, and why did I had so many thoughts that I couldn't understand, and why nobody could give me answers. And once I was able to do more, to focus more my energy into finding out how come my mother and I could never have an emotional bonding, connecting mother-daughter relationship as I would see it with other people. I, like this relationship that I desired for so long, that I had to put myself in finding out why. Why can I do this if my heart is desiring this beautiful thing that I have in front of me now, right? So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my story. So when I was 9 years old, my mother left Mexico and came to the U.S., and I stayed behind with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, and some of my aunts. And for the next 7 years, I was under their care, and my mother will travel back and forth to visit. And through the time of the separation, I couldn't find myself in a place where I could connect with her. And there was this connection that I wanted to have through my teenage years, and it was not happening. And as you know, as my t-shirt, as my thesis shows, a lot of my pain that I went through and trying to reconnect with her every time that I will meet with her, it just seemed that every time that we will come to be together, it would just be chaotic. It wouldn't be that I love you and I hug you, and it wouldn't be as we can sit down and have a heart-to-heart conversation for me to tell you everything that is going on, because it was always this voice coming from her to shut it down. And I couldn't understand why, like, you're my mom, you're here, you're finally here, let me tell you everything that is happening. And it will always be this moment of shutting down this pain that I was trying to share with her, and for her to hold it as a mother will hold the baby, with love and care and kindness. And that, that didn't happen for the next 7 years. So until finally we were able to be together. And for me, it's like, oh, good, like now I'm going to be with my mom, and now we can have a relationship together. And that was still not happening. She was there. We will live in the same house. We will talk, we will share, we will, talk about life in itself, but there was not a moment where we could actually talk about what we had gone through. And she wasn't open to listen to it. And I had too much pain to give her at that time. So in trying to understand this back and forth pain sharing, I had to go on a quest of healing and finding a closure with it, so I could move on and finally be able to have a relationship with her. And as I did my research, once I was doing my thesis, I was able to go more inward and realized that what I was giving her is something that she already had. She already had the same pain I had. So in trying to sit there and share this pain with her, she wasn't gonna hold it for me because she had her own pain. So that definitely led me more into me putting my pain and changing the perception that I was having about it. So I started, as the more I would read, the more I will do my own personal work, my own healing work. I realized that I couldn't keep giving my mother pain, that it was time for me to turn around and give her empathy. So out of all this pain that I was having, I something within me, something that we cannot put into words, open up this space for me to turn around and say, wait a minute, stop asking her why. Why did you leave? What happened? How come this is going on? I just turned around and I remember asking her, did you hurt? Were you in pain as well? Tell me about your pain. And in opening the dialogue, it's where I remember having this beautiful moment, very brief, Nancy, super brief, of connecting both of the pains that we have had. Ooh, and in that moment, there was this, I want to call it magical because there is no other way that I can describe it, of how powerful it was for this anger and just dissipating.
It was a moment of like a rebirth, a moment of conception into a new relationship, a new bond with your mom. Is that what it felt like?
Yes, it felt like it was for the first time that we were able to bond again. So it's a rebirth, definitely. So what that led me to realize, as I kept on asking myself questions, now it's a new insight, right? Like, wow, now I can connect with my mother at another level. Then I realized that pain is what disconnected us. And in some way, pain is what brought us back together. But from then on, it was no more hurting of the event. It was like a given forgiveness from soul to soul. If that makes sense. And from there on, there was a growth of empathy for both parts. The dialogues that we were able to have after that really showed me the struggle that she had to go through herself emotionally, and how she had to put her emotions aside, while I was holding on to so much emotions and I wanted to share them and have her hear them. She had to put them aside and she had to shut that door. Because
and so now we talk about like how important it is for parents to hold space for their children who have gone or are going through what you went through with your mom, right? And so how sometimes parents are unable to because of their own pain, and the struggle, right? The struggle of how to get yourself there. And there's so much work to be done between these relationships that are essentially torn and essentially, I don't want to say the word damaged, but where they're
ruptured.
It's created, and yes, it's like a rupture that's created to be in a place, right, where you can have a better life, where your mom is trying to do the best she can for you. And years later as an adult, right, and not through so many other experiences in life, it was really in grad school, through really exploring your thesis were you able to get to this place? And I'm just thinking about how many people have gone through what you have gone through or are going through what you're going through, and will they ever reach that place? Will they be able to understand that rupture and how that creates the way they relate to others, the way they relate to their own children, the way they relate in relationships and friendships. And then we talk about attachment styles and how important it is for a person to recognize and to take that inventory, that self inventory, to understand their attachment style, their love language, because those are important aspects, right, that are created through our childhood experiences. And as you have gone through, I'm sure it's something that also has affected you in so many other areas of your life.
Oh my God, yes. So definitely in regards to the relationship that we built with our parents, and in my case, what I have gone through, it did impact it a lot. It did impact it the way that I parented my children before doing my own healing, and it did impact it the way that I came back to repair that my own ruptures, not only with my children, but with other people around me. So as I'm hearing you speak to how important it is for mothers to open the space for their children to come and talk and share their story and share what they have gone through in relationship to both mother and child, it is very important, very, very important. And I keep seeing it in my clinical work. So somehow my own healing keeps bringing me cases similar to mine, not only with transnational motherhood abandonment, but something that I also in my thesis call progressive emotional abandonment, which is an emotional abandonment that is happening within the homes. And the parent, where the mothers are present, they don't have to travel across, they don't have to immigrate to another country for them to abandon the child, but within the same roof, there is also an emotional abandonment that it progresses through time. And I keep seeing it with mothers and daughters. And one of the things that I like to focus on is to help them see at a much younger age how the rupture that they experience, it's important to start repairing it as early as possible, I will say. Because I think that we have come to learn that once the children get older, then they get to understand what the parents went through, and then now they have a better relationship and so on, right? When there has been process work done. But I'm asking why? Why do we have to wait until we are 40, 50, 60 years old for us to turn around and say, oh, let me build a relationship with my mom? Why do we have to continue suffering through our adult lives and continue damaging our relationships when we can learn to do that at a younger age? So I keep seeing that, and I do my best in trying to help a lot of younger girls to work through this emotional abandonment that they experience with the mothers. And when it is permissible from both, from the daughters and the mothers to really open up, then there is a shift. And you don't have to wait until you're older. Now, one of the things that do have to happen is that the mothers are willing to be open and willing to and instead of putting this pain aside, to kind of just hold it in the space between her and the daughter as well, and allow them to interchange the experience of reconnecting and repairing the relationship.
Yes. And right now that I hear you talking about this emotional abandonment, and I'm just thinking about how sometimes our parents, it's a generational, then we get into generational
Mm-hmm.
trauma and how
Mm-hmm.
this, the upbringing of your mom, of my mom, and the absence of their own parents, possibly emotional absence, and how we are now asking these questions because we want change and we want to understand um, love and relationships from a different perspective. From we have so many questions, and we are doing the work that we can with our community and families. And I'm thinking about how important it is, and the lack of support groups for women who
Mm-hmm.
are overworked and have children. And and I think that us as therapists, when we talk about parenting and we talk about providing that time and that space for children, and how we say give at least your child 15 minutes a day, and sometimes for moms that are working 12 to 15 hours a day, it is so difficult to come home and provide that time. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's almost as if I'm just thinking about how in parenting classes, and we teach parents, don't just tell your child go clean the closet. Teach your child how you want the closet clean, how to clean the closet, and then model it, right? Because then the kid throws everything in the closet and you walk in and you're like, wait, I told you to clean it, I just throw everything in there. So it's kind of like the same idea, right? Where we as therapists or we as educators, sometimes we tell the parent, give your child 15 minutes, read them a book, talk to them and tell them, ask them, how was your day? But there's just so much more than that. And
Mm-hmm.
if we would be able to develop, and I'm sure there's groups out there, but put more emphasis and light into these groups where women can come in and be supportive of one each other and really understand what they've been through emotionally, understand that abandonment issue, and really understand how to support their children, how to have that quality time with them, even from a distance. Because I think, when I heard you have this reflection, you say, like, there were so many moments in your life where you would be talking to your mom and you wanted her to be there, but it's almost as if she didn't know how, and she did what she could. So I think that a lot has to do with education, and for us to provide these groups for women. Do you think that that would be helpful?
I think so. And I really think that they should be groups for mothers, and I mean for women in general, where they can come over and really bring all that they have going on internally for them to learn and to go back home and be able to be more emotionally available for their kids.
Yeah.
And at the same time, groups for girls, for
Mm-hmm.
them to learn at a younger age, not to only understand what's going on, because understanding is not a problem. We all are intelligent beings, and we rationally know why our mothers do what they do. So it's not a problem of understanding or a lack of, like, wait a minute, tell me again why you have to do what you have to do. But it's just this internal inquiry that I say that my soul will always be searching for in regards to why.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have a lot of parents, moms, who come to therapy and they want to focus into groups too, right? And they want to focus into finding solutions to how to best be there for their kids. But then if we don't address this emotional component of what is really going on internally, that
Mm-hmm.
is blocking you from being truly emotionally present for your child, then we are leaving a very important aspect of it out. Because techniques, everybody can learn techniques, but
Mm-hmm.
is the mother will the mother be willing to hold that? I'm going to call it guilt, because I think every mother has some type of guilt when it comes down to parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is the mother open to say, I feel guilty about not being emotionally available for my child, and I don't know how to turn around and give empathy, when I am feeling guilty about it. When I didn't teach my child to clean up the closet, but now I'm expecting my child to clean the closet. And then I react to my child, or I set up a consequence to my child, and then I go back and feel guilty about it. And then I try to compensate about it. And then I try and then I expect something from him, from my child again, and then I compensate again. So it's about teaching them that it's okay to give permission to the guilt so they can create a emotional space to have empathy for the child.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm thinking about what you're saying, and this topic, and so many, coming back to how many kids and are coming over, how many children are coming over without their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And, these groups that you're saying that are so important for young women, for young girls, for parents, there's just so much work to be done. And sometimes when I talk to women who don't have these experiences, right, from organizations, not as clients, and sometimes I will hear maybe someone say, well, that used to be before, but now it's different. And I always think to myself, well, no, it's not different, because then I wouldn't have work, right?
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't be having as many phone calls or waiting lists. We're all going through that. And so there's definitely so much work to be done. There's so much work to be done with moms who are here, who are overworked, working 12, 15 hours a day, coming home tired. And, it's an abundance of situations. But coming back to this topic and that emotional abandonment that all of these children are going to be going through right now, that are here with relatives. And many of them will maybe see their parents. Many of them will not see their parents. What can we do as mental health providers, advocates? There's so much conversation that can be had. I know, you're very close to Long Beach, where there's an influx of children that have come over, and so much community coming together to help them. But let's talk a little bit about that mental health aspect, because I think that part of what your thesis is about, and part of this pain, and let's not leave the boys behind, definitely. It's such an important part of what we do, to also provide that space for young boys who are going to become partners in life, right? So much work. Where do we start? Where can we start? And I always come back, I'm a big believer in community, and how one person learns from someone else's life journey and story, like we are today here with you in this topic. How can we start?
I don't know. I think it's different for everybody, especially with all the kids that we are seeing. It breaks my heart to know that they're going to go through something that I went through. And that it is, in a way, when like when everything started happening a couple of years, not a couple, I think it's like 4 years ago, that all these kids are being detained and they're being separated. And all I could feel was just my heart breaking over and over and over again, because it's a pain that I can recognize and connect with so closely. And the idea that they will be back together with their parents and what that will look like. I think that in a lot of their experience, they are not only being separated from their parents, and they understand the reasons why, but they are also placed in isolation, in a place where there's no, for whatever time they are in these centers, right? They don't have any human to human connection, like in my case and other cases when you stay with family members, where at least you know that you're still connecting to the people that it's taking care of you. But here you are in a place where now the connections are going to be between the children taking care of themselves. And a lot of these, look, like for example, the one you're right, I'm here in Long Beach, and where they have all the kids, the convention center where they have all the kids, is I have been in there. And not right now that the kids are there, but I have been in there for events, and it's cold.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a very cold, empty space
Empty.
where, and all these kids are just taken in there and having in there bed to bed next to each other. And it is, where am I? How is that gonna continue to rupture their own soul?
Mm-hmm.
And how is that also gonna add another layer of trauma to the separation that they have had with their parents?
Yeah.
And what reunification is gonna be for them if they were to make it to be with family members, which that is what we hope to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there is a lot of ambiguity into what is really happening to a lot of the kids that are being placed in these camps. And we don't even know. They don't even know if they're going to be able to see their parents again. They don't even, some of them must have lost their parents even before coming or on the journey.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is a trauma in the separation, that is a decision made, and the child is aware, that's one layer. And then there is the ambiguity of not knowing where you're going to end,
Mm-hmm.
which it adds another layer to it.
Mm-hmm.
And what would that look like for relationships in the future?
Mm-hmm.
For
One of the things that I'm thinking about right now is that I think one of the important factors is if the possibility to educate the caregiver, the family, the relatives, the
Mhm,
caregivers that are going to be bringing in the children into their homes, to be able to have these conversations, right? To be
mhm,
able to educate them on the type of symptoms, the type of behaviors that will
mhm,
possibly be emerging because of
mhm,
this trauma. It is
mhm,
so evident and important that we are possibly are able to provide caregivers and relatives with education on what are the signs of depression, anxiety, the trauma, PTSD, what to look out for, and
mhm,
definitely reaching out to providers so that they have the guidance. But step one, I'm thinking would be education and knowing how to hold space. And education is so important, but education is so important when it comes from someone that looks like you, that looks like me,
mhm,
because I think that within the community, when we're able to speak our language to our people, it validates what they're going through and your experience, what you have gone through, your experience, but also the language, right? That is very important. I think that there's a different connection when it comes from from within our community, if that makes sense.
mhm. Yes, it does. Yes, it does gives a lot of validity to it, and it makes a lot of the families feel more comfortable in addressing what has happened to them and how to better learn to be there for the kids. So I know that, for example, here in Long Beach, I have reached out, and I know a lot of my other colleagues have reached out to see if we can come and help as volunteering as mental health clinicians to provide support for a lot of the kids. But I so far the only answer we get from the city is like, well, you can send books, you can write letters, and that is a nice token, right? But in the city, paying attention to who are they sending these kids to receive services to, I guess in between my colleagues and I who tried to attempt to come and be there for them, there hasn't been really an answer. So
Mm-hmm.
it's in finding programs that the services are being given to them. And I believe, and I just believe that some of the services that they're providing to some of the for a lot of the immigrants that are receiving mental health is very limited, as as I have seen with some of the community agency services, that they can provide specific services, mental health services to immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems limited to what they can do.
It's definitely, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, as is before this, and we both know this, there's always a limitation to the type of services that we can provide to undocumented individuals, children. And so, yes, definitely a need and more conversation to be had. But I come back to step one, the conversation of learning how to hold space, learning about symptoms, and teaching, educating the caregivers, the family members, so that they're better prepared to understand what these children are going through.
Yes.
That
Yes,
would be ideal, because at this point it is frustrating, and I understand your frustration, because I feel like so many of us who have reached out and said, how can we help, right? And so I think that if we work from the outside in, that might be helpful. That being said, I mean, I think that we can definitely have more conversations about how to possibly be able to have these conversations with caregivers and relatives. And coming back again to your thesis, and how it's, when, again, I've known of your thesis for such a long time, and it was so relevant during the time that I read it, and now more so because of everything that's going on in the world. And so I, again, want to be saying that I'm so grateful to be able to have this space with you and this conversation. Where do you go from here with El Dolor de Hija?
To mother and daughters. That's where I'm going to. It's I haven't done a bigger research in regards that I can say, hey, like now I have this huge research done with the community, because I have not opened the space to gather information and keep record of it from my own clients. But through my work, I keep seeing the need to have a conversation with daughters, not only to get them to understand, but to connect to their own healing, to connect to themselves, so they can connect with the mothers. So groups, that's where it's going, in the direction of providing groups for young girls, and eventually boys. Yes, Nancy, I'm not leaving them behind. It's I have to take one step at a time. And then from there, probably do groups with both mother and daughters at an age that the daughters can come in and actually talk to the mothers with no more anger, but more empathy. So groups and individual work, continuing to do the individual work with the daughters and the mothers when they allow the space. So
Are you
that's
currently
where it's
running a
going.
group?
I am setting up the modules for the group,
Mm-hmm.
so I can get started, and I will be using this space to work with children who have experienced abandonment through the Department of Children and Family Services.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a huge impact, the huge need in reconnecting all these relationships that have to do with the separation of mothers and their children through the department as well. That creates very similar impact to it. So hopefully in the next couple of months, the group will be ready to start running. And
Perfect. How could people reach out to you if they want more information regarding your services?
That's a good question. Well, my email is through my email, I think, is the best way for now, and my phone number.
Do you want to share your phone number or your email? Maybe your email.
Maybe
What
my
is
email. It's aDelaTorre consulting@gmail.com.
Is it 2 R's?
Yes. You want me to put it in the chat?
Yeah, if you can. That would be great.
I think that's the best way for now.
Because I know that we're getting so many phone calls on a daily basis, and so it would be great to share your phone number, but I'm not sure if right now would be the best, right?
Yeah, so yeah, that's fine. So email is fine. They can reach me in my email. Any questions that they might have, any questions about the group that is coming in together. I just feel like it's never perfect enough, it's never ready enough. But
Yeah,
hopefully in the
you know
next
what?
couple of months.
Every day we're never ready enough. So I
Ready.
say you're ready. You're definitely ready. You've been ready. So here we go.
I have. So
Ade de la Torre Consulting at gmail.com. That is your email.
yes.
For people to reach out to you for services. And you are Alejandra Alvarez, presenting El Dolor de Hija with MentalHealth41. I appreciate your time, Alejandra. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate you having me here, sharing a little bit of my story, and hopefully we can reach out to people that can connect to and find the help that they will need to.
Yeah, definitely. And so I am your host, Paloma Collins with MentalHealth41. I'm grateful and again thankful to Alejandra Alvarez for being here today, and so much to continue to have a conversation about on this topic. And I hope to hear more about the work that you're doing in the community. Thank you, Alejandra, for being here.
Thank you.
Say bye.
Bye. Sorry.
No. Don't worry.